You are listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer. Chitra Iyer is a parent of 25-year-old Shravan Iyer who has epilepsy, cerebral palsy and autism. She is the CEO of MFA and has been helping families with life-centered planning to reach their personal financial goals. She is also a trustee of a parent support group, the Forum for Autism, which was set up almost 2 decades ago. MFA is an 18-year-old organization in the personal finance space. They have set up a dedicated practice to help families with special needs children to plan their financial goals and invest for them. The thoughts shared here are a result of the discussion with parents, caregivers, siblings, and professionals regarding the planning of a person with special needs.
Hello, everyone. A big warm welcome to all of you on this expert series of my podcast for special needs children. Thank you so much for your time and agreeing to do this interview with me, both Aalap and Aditi. Hi.
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 Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
No, entirely my pleasure. I'm just waiting for this to start. So before that, going forward with a very, very brief formal introduction about both of you. Everyone, in this episode, we have with us Mr. Aalap Deboor and Ms. Aditi Gangrade. Aalap is a director, writer, producer with 15 years in the entertainment industry. He had a good career in journalism, worked with the Sun Times, which was followed with TV programming and production with MTV and VH1, where Aalap produced shows like Coke Studio and Unplugged. Also, he led VH1 India's digital media efforts. Later, he was the head of Music for One Digital Entertainment too, which is India's largest creator network. Similarly, Aditi over the last 6 years has worked with brands such as Netflix, Instagram, Google, and many, many more. One of her recent films, Unmasking Autism, was screened at the Pride Filmtage Bremen Film Festival in Germany. Today, they are known famously as the co-founders of Much Much Media. They are an autistic couple, self-advocates, and filmmakers based out of India. Much Much Media is a storytelling studio based in Mumbai, having worked with brands, agencies, non-profits, and educational institutes to tell data-driven stories of impact across spaces such as health, community well-being, gender and sexuality, and climate and sustainability. Over the past 5 years, they have told stories for prominent brands, including Meta, Netflix, Google, International Cricket Council, HSBC, Mahindra, and many, many more. Also, renowned non-profits too. As of May 24, they were 50,000 plus strong, hyper-engaged social community active across Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and their content has over 100 million views. Their work and founders have had the founders meaning both Aalap and Aditi, have had the good fortune of being featured in renowned media publications such as CNN News 18, The Hindu, TY, the New India Express, UN News, and Midday. What a superb, kind of CV and bio you both have. And I'm really, really happy to see what you have achieved over this short period of time, both Aalap and Aditi. Heartiest congratulations, both of you.
And,
Thank you so much.
It's really an honor to be on this podcast.
It is.
No, not at all.
You were one of the
Completely, I
first
told you it's all the other way.
You were in fact one of the first parents that we heard about in your work. Obviously, with Forum for Autism is well renowned, and we're so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for coming over. So, going straight to the first question, can you please share your story? How did you both meet? How did your collaborative journey begin?
Yeah. So we met in 2020, right before the lockdown, actually. So it was, I think, Jan. We met in Jan, and it was for a show. So he was directing the show, and I was producing it, and we were traveling to. So it's quite kind of a filmy story that we have.
Very filmy and bang before COVID.
Yeah, right before COVID. And we were traveling to some 17 cities. So shooting and listening to stories and listening to
Wow.
people's experiences about mental health and other important issues. And that's when, like, we started talking about these things. We connected over a lot of similar experiences and also shared interests. And that's when we realized that we are good friends first. So we became really good friends, and then eventually we started dating. And we were a lockdown couple, so yeah, it was a long distance.
Must have been so difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a long distance relationship for the first around 7 to 8 months, and then yeah, rest is history.
Yeah, I guess. So, how did you both discover that you are on the spectrum? How did the word autism enter your lives? And primarily, why did you decide to self-diagnose yourselves?
Actually, when we met, we always used to wonder why we clicked so immediately. Why, like, there was this unspoken thing between us that we couldn't pinpoint, that why are we so similar, why did we connect like so suddenly in a group of, like, say 20-22 people, why us? And I think after our marriage, so we got married in 21, and 6 months into our marriage we started looking up more about mental health, because mental health is something that both of us are have been really passionate about, and are very also vocal about. So Aalap has had his fair share of struggles with his mental health, and so did I. And we thought that it was just anxiety, or it was just something that was a problem, so to speak. But as we started looking more into the world of neurodiversity, I think we started relating more. I think Aalap would be able to share more about how we actually came to this realization.
Yeah, the lockdown, very interestingly, was a time of deep, self introspection for a lot of people, because obviously there was time at hand for once, in the longest time now you had that time to sort of think about your lived experiences, everything that you had been through. I officially started therapy in 2019, and this was way before my diagnosis of autism, and my discovery of neurodivergence. And surprisingly, very little came up about, in fact nothing came up about neurodivergence in that therapy. It was all about anxiety. It was all about having struggling with mental health, struggling with having bad days, and being in media. It's a very sort of social kind of a life, right? You meet a lot of people, and while on the face of it you don't have any communication difficulties, you don't have any language challenges, people don't see beyond that into how communication actually is for you. How much thought you have to put into it, how much just sort of the amount of masking that you have to do,
and scripting.
These are terms also that we found out after our autism discovery, and once we've connected with the community and stuff. So very interestingly, there's a term for everything that you do as an autistic person that you don't realize when you're not diagnosed, when you aren't discovered. So for the longest time, I thought it was ADHD, because, I had looked up ADHD. Information about ADHD is also, out there, but very little is known about autism and how differently it presents in different people. So it took about like almost a year's worth of looking into this, reading books, talking to people all the way from the US to Australia. And of course, even out here in India, there were people who were diagnosed before us who were adults. So they were doing their fair share of advocacy and stuff. So, we connected with the community, we read up, and then finally, there's a fantastic organization called Forum for Autism. Action for Autism. Forum for Autism is your organization, which is also fantastic.
Yeah.
But Action for Autism in Delhi, they do adult diagnoses. And so, called them up, set up a time with them. And there was in fact a waiting for about 3 or 4 months. So that means that's how queued up the adult autism diagnosis scene is out here in India. There's so many people waiting to get diagnosed. And so that happened. That itself took about 4 or 5 months. And then once that happened, I sort of, got a much better idea of my mind, why I am the way I am, etc. But Aditi will be able to delve better into the lived experiences of women with autism, which there isn't too much out there about. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Aalap sort of discovered this, I think, in early 22, and he was reading this book Neurotribes, and he was relating to a lot of things, and then he started talking about these things with his mom, and both of them were like, this is so you, like every experience. So there was like experiences of different children who were autistic, and Aalap's mom really related and resonated with a lot of things. And when I read that book, I didn't really relate with a lot of experiences. I was like, okay, this is autism, I will learn more and try to understand Aalap better. So when he went in for his diagnosis, I was looking up multiple videos of autistic women and autistic men and everyone else. And that's when I realized that there is a difference in how autism presents in men and how autism presents in women, and also the intersection of autism and ADHD in women. So I started relating a lot with those experiences, but I was still a little hesitant to label myself as autistic or ADHD, because I was like, okay, this is something that I need to consult someone with about. And I think that's when I also decided to go in for an autism assessment. So I enrolled myself for an assessment with AFA, as Aalap did. And there was again a long waiting list, but when it happened, it took me a way longer than how Aalap's assessment was. It was also like very difficult to go through diagnosis, because you have to talk about your childhood, you have to dig into all your memories, and I mean, I don't know if it's my ADHD or what, but I really don't remember most of my childhood and most of my teenage years. And also, like, there are these spurts of memories that I have, but like even revisiting those was not easy for me. So that's when I decided to opt out. And then I read up about self-diagnosis, and I was like, okay, but is self-diagnosis valid? Because like, you are not a professional. I mean, I'm not a professional. How can I diagnose myself? And then I came across how so many people around the world are self-identifying and self-diagnosing, because diagnosis is not accessible for everyone. And then also because DSM-5 does not include like women and also adult women from India and other parts of the world. So that's when I realized that, okay, self-diagnosis can be valid. And if I identify with autism and ADHD, and I mean, there is no purpose, I mean, as such, of a diagnosis. Like after a diagnosis, it's not like you'll get any kind of particular support by the government or any entity for that matter. It's just you supporting yourself. And because I was identifying with so many traits, I was like, okay, if I am able to change my working styles, maybe accommodate myself better, ask for help, then it's worth self-diagnosing. I hope I was able to answer your question.
It was just so beautiful and so touching. Really, Aditi, you spelled it out very, 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 very nicely. I can't even imagine what you must have gone through, both of you, when you were going through the process, especially the way you explained it. Mustn't have been easy at all. I don't know how difficult was it immediately. Or did it bother you about, did you feel free that, okay, I finally got to know what's up with me? Or was you bothered with the label, or what happened immediately?
I think it was grief at first, that why were we not diagnosed earlier? Why did it happen so late in our lives? I think there was also this hesitation to use the label autistic or ADHD because we were not sure how people are going to react, how our family is going to react to this. I mean, we had this in joke for a while. We were like, if our autism or ADHD was diagnosed earlier, then we might have not gotten married to each other, or we might have not found a partner.
I can
But
imagine. Correct.
yeah, the stigma is huge.
Huge.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was born and brought up in Madhya Pradesh, so and specifically in Indore. So what I have seen around me is like autism is like mentally retarded was the word that was used for autistic people. Sorry for using that word. I really hate that word, but
It's
that
the
was the
fact in
word.
India.
Yeah, that is the word people relate autism with. And we were not sure if as entrepreneurs or as people who are working in the media industry, how will it impact our work and our business. But then we also realized that it's not just us. And I mean, people are so openly talking about mental health, people are so openly talking about their identity, then why is there so much stigma around neurodiversity? And that is something that our inside justice system like could not cope with. And we were like, we have to do something about it, because when we googled what is autism or what is autism in adults or autism in India, all we could see was cures and how to fix your child, or how to not let your child stim. And these things really bothered us, because that is really not how autistic people or any person for that matter should be treated. I personally have like a very close relation with autism, because one of my family members, my uncle, was autistic, and he had multiple disabilities. So I knew somewhat about what autism could look like in different people. But yeah, that's when we decided to start Much Much Spectrum, because we were like, no, this can't happen, and we need to change things, the way things work in India, and maybe follow other people, other parents, and what other people like advocates such as you have done in this particular industry, in this field of autism. So we started talking to parents, we spoke to a lot of parents, and that's when we realized that the advocacy in India, whatever has happened in India in the space of autism, is all because of parents, and self-advocates are just emerging now, like in 21.
Yeah, it's all thanks to parents, honestly. And parents, I mean, with the work that parents have done so far, autism has become somewhat known, as known as it is right now. It's all thanks to the work of parents who have advocated for their children, and in plenty of ways, plenty of affirming ways also. And parents were in fact our first gateway into really learning about this space. We spoke to a bunch of parents who were who have autistic children, and we learned about it. And so many of them, they passed us on to the right spaces, they passed us on to the right people. And yeah, I mean, that is where the first source of hope and courage and everything else like came from. So yeah, we're very thankful to the parent community. We are very happy to be associated with some wonderful parents, and we really admire all of their work. And we are always looking for ways to work with parents, in multiple ways, because they have their own parents have their own experiences, which are also very important to learn about and know about. And of course, self advocates have their own experiences. I think together, a lot could happen, and any change that happens in this space will happen because of combined efforts. Nothing can happen in silos. So that is the journey that we're currently on. In short, ever since we started 2 years ago, is to really unite voices, different kinds of voices, and really put out information, put out awareness through lived experiences about autism and other neurodevelopmental differences.
Lovely. So since you did share a lot about the parent support that's come in, and also, as you rightly pointed out, there's the whole self-advocacy, the movement has just begun for us. In the rest of the world, it was there very strong, but hopefully, guys like you, it's going to go a real long way. And as you rightly said, Alap, it has to be completely collaborative, and a lot can be achieved. So, what currently, what is the state today? How does your day-to-day experience of living with autism look like? And what about family and friends? Have they provided the support that you need to navigate whatever challenges that you all have? How's it going for you all now?
A great question, Chitra. So soon after I was diagnosed, my father, essentially as part of a diagnosis process, what you have to do is that there's a bunch of assessment forms that you are required to fill out, and then your parents are required to fill out and everything. So I passed this set of forms on to my dad, who went through it, and he said that ये सब क्या, ये तो normal है, सबको होता है. And I said, अगर आपको लगता है कि ये normal है, सबको होता है, तो maybe you should go in for a diagnosis as well.
आपको भी
He
exactly.
said, he said, चलो कर लेते हैं, and he did it, and it came out positive for him also. And that is when we kind of, joined the dots, and we figured out that, this is something that, runs in families. This is something that, is, if you're going through it, your father's, if he's had the same experiences, he's on the spectrum, that means, it runs in families, and it came for me as a kind of like a relief. It answered a lot of questions in my head about why we were the way we were, and how we react to certain. Like my father, for example, is so he's so fixed to his routine, right? And that is something that we thought कि ठीक है चलो, matlab, he's like that only. But then we found out why that was the case, and a sudden shift in routines and all will also kind of make him a little jittery. He becomes a little anxious because of that. So everything has to be pre-planned and everything. So for my father, for me, for my mother, it actually came as somewhat like of a relief. Of course, it brought its own set of challenges. Ki abhi kya, what after this, and how to go about, like figuring this out, etc., etc. So again, I mean, one great way, we always tell others also, one great way to figure out this journey is to connect with other people who have had similar lived experiences. Because, the human mind is such that the moment you know that someone else is going through what you are going through, right, there's immediately, somewhat of a relief. Half of the worry, half of the struggle, the trouble that you have in your mind just goes away at that instant when you know that, chalo, someone else is going through the same thing. Maybe I can talk to them. Maybe I can connect with them. And surprisingly, what has happened over the past 2 years is that this community has really mushroomed. There's been a lot of people who have undergone this discovery about themselves in multiple ways. Some are ADHD, some are autistic, some discovered their dyslexia late. And how would you think that, right? Like dyslexia is something that about that, that should get diagnosed early in life, etc. But there are so many late diagnosed dyslexics also. And then there's a bunch of different neurodivergences. So, coming together, being in similar spaces, we've attended, then we've now also started attending a lot of, disability and neurodiversity conferences and stuff where we meet the same people a lot of the times. So there's a kind of like a camaraderie, like a friendship that has evolved. And we're on WhatsApp groups, so there's a lot of ranting that keeps going on. There's a lot of sharing of lived experiences, a lot of venting, a lot of in general, like a lot of chatter happens on these groups that we have and stuff. So I'd almost like to say, I also think that we're a community of sorts now, like a biggish community, and we're there for each other. We help each other out in terms of the resources we need, in terms of the help we need. Sometimes we'll also ask questions about, doctors. Is this doctor neurodiversity affirming? Is this place neurodiversity affirming? Can we go there? Someone else will reply saying it's too loud. Please carry your headset. So you carry your headset and go there. That's a potential meltdown avoided. So, these small ways are ways in which we support each other. And then that, okay, someone else is looking out for you, which in itself is a great feeling. In terms of day to day, it's the challenges are still there. I won't say that the challenges just magically go away. But once you figure out why those challenges exist in the first place, it's easier to find accommodations and help and support in the form of medication, in the form of therapy, in the form of support groups, in the form of community. You can actually actively look for these things, and that itself makes your life more or less complicated, I should say.
Fabulous. What you shared was really amazing. And I think many more people who were even thinking about, perhaps something. I mean, through people have got to know now that people are trying to understand themselves better, and also since the access to the DSM is also there, so we do hear of.
Correct.
Are you hearing of many more people trying to self-diagnose themselves?
Oh, lots. We ourselves on our community, we get so many messages every day.
Requests, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
from
a lot of
people.
people are going in for diagnosis. A lot of people are self-diagnosing. So it's different for different people. And now, what we are also realizing is now all those people who got diagnosed or who are parents of autistic children or neurodivergent children, they are themselves getting diagnosed.
Yeah.
So
Just
Right.
yesterday, we got a message from this
Mhm.
lady, 45 years old, and sends in a message saying, for the longest time, I've wondered if, I would be neurodivergent as well because my son, I think she has a son. So my son was diagnosed autistic, and I've always wondered, but I've just never, gone in for a diagnosis. But now I'm seeing so many late diagnosed people. So I'm thinking I should go in for one too. So do you know where I can find a diagnosis? And so many such people write to
yeah.
us.
And they're also getting into content creation, so people are now not hesitant to share their
Yeah,
stories to
vocalize
yeah
that yes, there is something, and I figured about it. And like you rightly said, if it had been done earlier, a lot of intervention could have happened a lot more earlier, and you wouldn't have struggled through life. Not that the struggle is any less now. But in fact, I wanted to ask you, what about available services for adults? Once you get a diagnosis, what has been your experience in terms of reaching out to people, the right people? Like when you shared about Action for Autism in terms of getting the diagnosis. What after that? Because you would have seen a lot of changes
yeah
in your life. So
yeah
how are you adapting? Who's helping?
actually once we discovered this for almost like 7 to 8 months, we were like, what do we do? Like, how do we find support? Is there therapy? uh, is there any kind of help? And as Alap said, we became a part of a lot of groups. And though we didn't really find that much support, so yes, there is therapy for neurodivergent people and all of that, but with much spectrum, we are doing exactly that. We are building that support system, that if someone gets diagnosed or discovers themselves as neurodivergent, then they can come to this place and they can talk about their experiences. They can find friends here, they can find community, they can find therapists, and basically, like, you don't have to feel alone. So we felt alone for the longest time after our discovery, because as like you were asking if our friends were supportive, so none of our friends have till now asked about our diagnosis or discovery. None of them have asked about autism. A lot of people started like distancing themselves. So I don't know what people think about autism, but as soon as they started seeing that label autism and ADHD on our social media profiles and everywhere else, and they started seeing our content and the fact that we are so vocal about it, a lot of people distanced themselves. So it was a lonely journey, and as entrepreneurs, it's already like a lonely journey. So now with Spectrum, our whole idea is to partner with like-minded people and to build that support system, and to build an overall ecosystem that not just okay much spectrum, but also how can we enable other organizations to do the same. How can we make strategic partnerships so that other people, so for example, if someone is living in northeast and is not on Instagram or any other social platform, how can they receive support? So our whole idea is to like make that accessible for people.
I think that's absolutely lovely, and I think you guys are the best. Where people will be more than open and would love to reach out to and make friends, as you said, Aditi. That's so important because when they feel that this is a safe space, I guess automatically people will open up and would want to share what they're going through and then ask for help also, right?
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
already there are like so many people on our Instagram and from India. So people from India who became friends on our Instagram page. So we post a lot of content every day, and
Right.
comment section is like a full thing in itself. So it's very active. So many people talk to each other in that comment section, and so many people who we connected with, they have found friends through our Instagram. So now I think that is something that
It's
we are
lovely. Yeah.
we are really happy about that.
Super. So, can you please tell a little bit more about, how and why did you want to set up? Both of you wanted to set up Much Much Media. What was the thought behind it, and where is it headed? Where are you all headed?
So Much Much Spectrum started when we were actually on a Goa trip, and we kind of vlogged the entire journey. So we were on a Goa trip, and we sort of we had just discovered our neurodivergence, and we were talking about what it is that we could do to sort of spread word about it, really talk about it, and from an Indian context, very much from an Indian context, because unfortunately, whatever advocacy happens, self-advocacy happens outside of India is not very relevant in the Indian context, not fully relevant, of course, because, cultures are different, the manners of speaking, interacting with people. We're very much still a very collectivist society. So those things, are still very different from how things are in the US and the UK and other places. So Much Much Media was already on. Much Much Media had been on since 2019. We were already creating a lot of content across various formats and stuff. So we figured, we had a small team. So we figured, why not start something that could specifically focus on neurodiversity, and especially on late discovered neurodiversity. And so we went out and we shot, our first series. It was called Alag Hai Kam Nahi, which is Different Not Less. Different Not Less is essentially something, it's a movement that started in the US, and what it essentially means is that people with neurodiversity, people with disabilities are different, but we're no less than anyone else. And so that essentially happened, and there was a series that came out of that, which was very, very well received online, and in a lot of circles. And so we decided to sort of keep that ongoing, from that momentum that we got. And then a lot of people started to write into us. And so that's when, kind of like that discovery happened, that we thought that maybe this is way bigger than what we had imagined it to be, because there were a lot of people who were going through similar things that they hadn't come out with it. They just hadn't spoken to anyone about it. So every time you feel that, there is something that only you might be going through, in reality, there's a many more people going through the same thing. It's just that nobody's talking about it. And once someone starts talking about it, right, you kind of set off like a domino effect. Then everyone starts coming and talking about it. And once that happened, the movement slowly happened and it mushroomed. And then, people from the US joined in, people from the UK joined in. There's obviously a lot of differences in the ways of talking, in the ways you address neurodiversity. Some people say, I like to be called autistic. Some people say person with autism. Some people say disabled person. Some people say person with disability. So, those nuances are always there. And, I think we started the chat out with this idea of, names and what should be the right way of talking, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you're in it, with the right intent and, to spread awareness and to, bring people together, I think language, verbiage, etc., I think that should be secondary. Intent is always, primary. So keeping that thought in mind, we started talking about our experiences and brought in, fortunate enough to have collaborated with some very, very good foundations, some very good nonprofits along the way, who really saw, the cause, who saw the sort of world the way that we do. And they've commissioned some very nice work to us, and we were able to really put our heart and soul into, telling our stories, telling the stories of other people similar to us, stories about bullying, about sexuality, about gender, about entrepreneurship and neurodivergence. So really hoping to bring out the beautiful variety, the whole spectrum, which is why I think it's called Much Much Spectrum also, the whole spectrum of experiences that come with neurodiversity, so that people don't just see us in one light, कि ये लोग तो ऐसे होते हैं या ये लोग तो ऐसे ही करते हैं type of a thing. We really want to show how how nuanced our lives are, what all we can do, and even though we are different, we are no less, essentially.
And also, I think representation, what Aalap was talking about, was, I think, representation. So when we were growing up, we didn't see many disabled people in media. So whether it's visible disabilities or invisible disabilities, and being filmmakers and being in the media industry, we thought like this has to happen in India. Like representation of visible and invisible disabilities need to happen in India. And that is why, like, the whole idea of Much Much Spectrum is to have a media channel and a community that can essentially represent all these marginalized and underrepresented communities, not just neurodivergence and not just disabilities, but also like a spectrum of other identities as well. Because I mean, when we were growing up, I think Aalap will relate with that. And like, I will talk about myself, but when I was growing up, I really felt alone. I felt like, why am I like this? And I now when I look back to it, I feel like no child should feel like that. So now that is why we are also like looking to include parents and talk about parenting and how things could maybe look different for the generation that is now growing up. And yeah, our aim is to have like advertisements represent better, represent disabled people better, and our films need to represent disabled people better, not mock us or not pity us, but really truly represent us the way we are and include us in those conversations.
Really? Yeah, Aditi. I mean, I'm at a loss of words when, both of you are sharing so openly. And I want to ask a little more in detail about the work at Much Much. First of all, who came up with Much Much?
It was Aalap.
Yeah, that would have to be
It
me.
was such a beautiful one. Yeah. Really very nice. Hats off to you, Aalap. So,
Thank you.
Aalap, you're saying that you do a lot of storytelling, right? And you were talking about using this in a big way as part of your work, correct? So how is it helping in promoting and understanding acceptance of all the diverse experiences, especially within communities that are often marginalized?
Unfortunately, difference is not looked upon very favorably, in society. In a lot of ways, there are certain templates, there's a lot of institutional pressure on people to behave a certain way, to be a certain way. And anybody, who's an outlier, anybody who's at the peripheries is automatically excluded, faces a lot of, exclusion, faces a lot of stigma, is at the receiving end of a lot of ridicule, bullying in a lot of cases and stuff like that. And more of us are different in many ways than we realize. A lot of us just conform because of pressures, because of many pressures. And a lot of us are not privileged enough to not have to conform to those pressures. We have to in a lot of ways, because Indian society, as I said before, is very collectivist in that sense. And so pretty much when you talk about differences being okay, when you talk about differences in any way, you're being, a part of diversity in general, people automatically start to accept those differences as their own. It's a long journey. I'm making it sound very simple. It's not as simple, of course. It's a longish journey, also a very personal journey. But that does start to happen. That shift does start to happen. In fact, it has happened over the past 2 years, where you're seeing this massive rise in the number of disabled creators from around the world. You open LinkedIn, you open Instagram now, there weren't this many disabled and neurodivergent creators, even parents of neurodivergent children back in the day. And over the past 2 years, 3 years, that has steadily increased. The number of brands that have now, recently a film came out about Shrikant Bola, which who's an entrepreneur with visual impairment. So, media has started to really take portrayals, good, honest portrayals into account, and that never happened earlier. Even earlier, also, if you see, a lot of different kinds of neurodivergences were looked at as evil behavior. You'll always have villains who will have like either schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, and these were all looked at as evil sort of behaviors and stuff, which isn't happening anymore. People are really delving deeper into the nuances of characters, into the nuances of people. I wouldn't say it's not happening at all, but that has reduced considerably, and a better understanding has evolved. So I would say talking about these stories, talking about this in across social media and the various forms that we do, just makes it easier for people to accept themselves for who they are, as opposed to put pressure on themselves to be different, which I think is desperately needed in society today. And it also goes to show the diversity that exists. So we are roping in a lot of different kinds of stakeholders to tell these stories, all the way from brands to non-profits, foundations, and it goes to show that even brands, non-profits, etc., have started to put their weight behind the diversity, the general diversity in human nature that exists. So I think that's a fantastic direction for society to move in, because with all the different kinds of inclusion that we are seeing currently, there's of course the whole LGBTQI plus movement, which has really blossomed in the past few years. Of course, a long way to go still, but from where it was 10 years ago, it's come a long way now. There's a lot more people, a lot more activity, many more events happening. So it shows support, solidarity, and community. So I think these things are important pillars of society that really need to bloom.
And I think also research. So when we specifically talk about disability, I think there is very little research that has happened by the government and also by private players. So now we are like, through our partnerships and through everything that we do, also I think we're also trying to encourage people to get more into research and to find out what the parent community needs, what kind of products and services autistic people or neurodivergent people need. So that has also become our focus area, and that is why we call ourselves a data storytelling studio. So everything that we do is based on data, is based on our community. So we get a lot of insights from our community, and we use that to help other organizations to build services and products for the community. And I think apart from that, I think just better representation is something that we are looking forward to.
I think the data is super important. The data aspect really needs to kick in, and we really need to invest more in collecting data, especially with regard to the needs of neurodivergent people and parents and caregivers and everything, because very little is out there, and until we have more information, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to design services that cater to these people, the historically neglected and marginalized people. So yeah, we're hopefully somewhere on the way along to doing that, and helping out in multiple ways that we can.
Great, really very nice. So what exactly are your aspirations now for Much Media in terms of furthering your mission and expanding your reach?
So our aim is to normalize these conversations, and we intend to do that through entertainment. So entertainment, like everyone in India loves entertainment, and I think that is the way we also see ourselves to work towards normalizing these conversations. So right now, like our focus has been to create cross format and cross platform content. So as of now, we've made a lot of documentaries and docu-shorts and series, but now we also intend to enter the fiction space and have more short films and feature length films, which are written by neurodivergent people or are written by parents or people from the community. and essentially having such stories on our mass platforms such as Netflix and Amazon Prime and other platforms. We're already pitching some stories. We are in the process of writing some and pitching some. So that's that's what we are hoping to do.
And also, rope in more stakeholders, in the format of brands and bigger foundations who want to, who want to mainstream these dialogues. Because at the end of the day, I mean, today in the kind of world that you're living in, brands have real power. Brands have the power to tell stories. Brands have the power to mainstream narratives. So really, showing them that this community exists, we exist. We are we're a big community. I'm saying us as well as parents, caregivers, everyone included. It's definitely more than the 1 crore or 2 crore people that that showed in the last 2011 census that we did. It's a vast community. So just showing the power of that community to brands and non-profits and bringing everyone in to further this dialogue, further this conversation.
Wow. So just super. So, as we come to the end, I want to really express huge gratitude to both of you. I think you openly and honestly shared about your journey, right from diagnosing yourself and sharing about your experience of going through the diagnosis itself was very touching. And I think many of the people who want to listen to this are going to feel that yes, we are in the same boat and we have somebody who is there who's going to catch hold of that boat and, take me across the river. How you felt you were all alone, how stumped you were when you figured that yes, you are autistic, to finding each other, then helping so many find themselves and establish a space to share, made me go through that entire emotion, that entire heart-wrenching times, all those times that you both must have gone through. To now, it feels like one of rejoicing where you're doing so much for others. It is the whole thing. I'm sorry it went very fast, but it felt like a short film in itself. I feel that what you have set up as Much More Spectrum is giving a voice and a space to everyone who's out there. I feel it was just absolutely the need of the hour, Aalap and Aditi. And you just did it. And I guess the followership completely proves it, right? What an active space you have. And what you plan to do so very well, you all have articulated that it all sounds so super exciting, and I am sure all of us we would love to join hands with you to do what is it that what all that you're setting out to do, whether it is mainstreaming every single marginalized community, helping brands reach out, Aalap, what you said at the end, giving power to so much that's out there and making it like a space where every voice is heard and everybody gets their due, and there is a harmony. Of course, I mean, we can dream to the best, right? So
Absolutely.
I want to give both of you all a huge round of applause for what you'll have achieved till now first, and tell you that all the very best for what you're setting out to do. And thanks a ton for sharing from the bottom of your hearts. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chitra. And this coming from you means a lot to us because you are someone we look up to, like both of us. And the kind of work that you have done in the past so many years is like so inspiring, and it's so we admire you a lot. And thanks so much for having us. It really means a lot
Yeah, absolutely, we do. Thank you so much. We really do admire you, your work. And, honestly, what we've done over the past 2 years is just literally take forward a little bit of what, mothers, caregivers, parents, such as yourselves, and so many more have done over the past so many years. So, honestly, all thanks to you. We're just, helping sort of take this forward. And we really hope to be able to do it with, people such as yourselves, other parents, caregivers, organizations led by parents who have been doing so much in this space. So yeah, I think thanks to us, all of us, collectively.
Correct. I agree. Completely agree.
Thank you so
Okay,
much once
Chitra.
again, Chitra.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us. Really means a lot. Thanks.
You were listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer, the CEO of MFA and a trustee with the Forum for Autism. If you find this podcast relevant and interesting, it will be great if you leave a review, share, like, and subscribe. You can also let us know if there is any specific topic that you would like us to cover. Feel free to email her on chitra.iyer@myfinad.com, or you can call her on 9833 785 892. That is 9833 785 892.